All right. Sean scooped everything I'm going to say, so I'm going to be very brief.
That's all right.
And I want to underscore a couple of things. Let's see. He said, oh, good. So clearly we have a problem. And I call them plagues. And we got to figure out what to do about them. I think both Bill and Sean and all of us have been watching the consequence of these play out. Fire, flood, disease, pollution, loss of what we need to survive, as well as our natural systems. So I want to cut to just a couple things I want to focus on. So you see, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to point this at. Oh, here's one. Just look at the map on the right. Those are not roads, those are canals. And this is a big factor in drainage. We have a lot of canals. And here's one of, by the way, when we build in floodplains, this is East Bonita Springs, which floods almost every time it rains really hard. Of course, it floods in floodplains. We've got to figure out a better way to do that. No more houses in floodplains or the lower Ninth Ward or wherever water normally goes. And here's something that people haven't been talking about, and that's biosolids, which is another word for sewage sludge. And this map shocked me. This is where sewage sludge is called fertilizer and spread in the state of Florida. This is a problem. This is a big problem, and we have not figured out how to solve this problem. And we produce 350,000 dry tons of sewage sludge every year, and we don't know what to do with it. So we're putting it on the landscape, calling it beneficial fertilizer, and trying to forget about it. But the water doesn't forget. So what do? Well, I think the theme, there are lots of things, and I will second everybody in this room for calling out the EPA and the Army Corps for changing the definition of what wetlands are protected by the Clean Water Act Thursday. That drops over half of the wetlands of the United States out of protection by the Clean Water Act. This is the waters of the United States has changed the definition by federal decree to drop out the shallow, seasonal, ephemeral wetlands in the United States. And those are the ones that Sean showed you in that pink map. Those are critical. That's where periphyton grows. Those shallow wetlands, those are the periphyton mats, the ephemeral wetlands. And we lose that periphyton, you cannot clean up the water like nature intends. We lose our kidney functions. So we have got to solve that problem. But I think the main thing I wanted to say is that we need to restore wetland health. There are lots of things going on from Bonita Springs to Estero to the Water Management District. There are several modeling efforts going on. Corkscrew, Sean mentioned the Corkscrew's about to start on a regional hydrologic model. There is something called the South Lee County Watershed Restoration Initiative, and that's what the subject of my talk is. And that initiative looks at this area, and it looks at what can we do to restore the health of our watersheds. And that's really the principle. That's the theme that I think, if you want nature's kidneys to work, we need wetlands back. We need watershed health. We need storage. We need cleansing. We need habitat. And we need flood protection and water supply and recharge and fire protection. All those things come with watershed health. And we don't know what we're doing unless we do some modeling to figure it out. We don't know a whole lot about how the western side of the state works. There's been a lot of studies on the eastern side. We're flying kind of blind on the western side. The data that Sean showed you about water levels is really something we think extends regionally throughout the 3,000 square miles of Southwest Florida. So this is something that we need to do some serious hydrologic modeling for the Corkscrew system and for the wider Lee County, South Lee County system to figure out what projects are going to bring back that health. Do we need storage? Do we need more wetlands? Yes, all those things. But where do we put them and how do we build them? So this is an example of a project that's already been built. It's called the Southern Crew Project. It's if you know where the Kiel Canal is, and this is an area that should have been in the Crew Project but was not. and it was added later, called the Critical Southern Crew Project. It's now been completed, about 4,000 or 5,000 acres, bought by the Water Management District and the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's been restored. It holds water, it cleans water. It's the headwaters of the Kiel Canal. This is a great small-scale success story, and we need to do a whole lot more of that. The Comprehensive Watershed Master Plan for Southwest Florida, used to be called the Feasibility Study, has all those kinds of water quality storage, flood control, and restoration projects that we need. And there's lots of lists of them, but we don't know what's going to work. There's a suite of projects for Estero Bay, for the Estero watershed, and there's one for the Corkscrew watershed. But we don't know what's going to work until we model it. Science should be our guide. It seems like science has become somehow a partisan word. That's crazy. That's how we know what direction we should be pointing ourselves. If you don't like science, then don't get in your car to leave here. Don't sit in air conditioning. Don't eat food that agriculture has given us, or water that science has cleaned for us and through our system. So we need science to tell us what to do next. And that's, I guess, the theme of my presentation. The South Lee County Watershed Initiative is local governments, organizations, agencies all working together to try and figure out how can we implement basically SERP, Everglades restoration, for Southwest Florida. And that's really the principle of what's going to help us with water quality, flood protection, and all these other things. Thanks.